Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Hello, everybody. It's time for another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. I'm Michael James. I'm here in Chicago, and we have a couple of really wonderful guests today. We're going to have an old pal, Marilyn Katz, coming on talking about, well, whatever she wants to talk about. I know we're going to talk about an article she just did in the Sun-Times, as well as maybe some follow-up on the last time she was on the show and talked about Israel. And then we're going to go all the way over to Japan, where Waking Up right now is rocking Johnny Burgin, who's coming to town with the Johnny Burgin and his Blues review, and we're going to catch up with him. Let's start off with a couple of good things that are in the news this week. One of them would be President Biden canceled $9 billion in student loan debt. That happened on Wednesday, and apparently it's set up so it'll work. So let's hope so. In the nation's capital, there's been a lot of raucous behavior, and we no longer have Kevin McCarthy as the Speaker of the House. The MAGA group of 8, well, 7 MAGAs and one more, got together with every Democrat and opposed Kevin McCarthy. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. What I like about it is the Democrats stuck together, and they decided we don't want this guy, and I think they are probably optimistic about what is to come. And another good thing this week is former president, the orange-haired guy, he is in court in New York. And I guess he's going to testify. And there was a limited gag order put on him by the judge because he was bad-mouthing everybody and, people were going to testify, et cetera. So that's a good thing. Not so good as the ongoing continuation of gun violence in this country. We have a situation where this past Tuesday, we had a number of people shot at Morgan State in Baltimore. And then on Wednesday, there's a report as we were recording of a shooting in downtown Mount Holyoke, Massachusetts. On the labor front, I'm in the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA. We are still on strike, even though the writers have made a deal and gone back. That may be good for the SAG-AFTRA strike. We'll wait and see. Also on the strike front, United Auto Workers continue to be on strike and are increasing the number of people who have walked out. And basically, some of those walkouts are forcing other places to close. And as we went to record today, that would have been Wednesday, we heard that the Kaiser Permanente workers on Wednesday morning went out on strike 75,000 strong, first in Washington, D.C. and in Virginia. And then it went to Colorado and a number of states along the West Coast. On the sports front, this is Chicago-centric. The Cubs faltered big time in the last month of play. They are out of the playoffs, which began on Tuesday. The Bears, we thought they had a win, and they may have been too confident at halftime, but they lost by 3 points to the Denver Broncos on this past Sunday. And they seem to be in a state of disarray. The Bulls are starting training camp, I think, down in Memphis, and they'll be in Chicago soon. And we're looking forward to the Bulls. And the Blackhawks are also getting underway. Last week, we had some really neat guests. And in case you didn't hear it, you can either see it or hear it on Spotify and Google Podcasts, also on youtube.com/Heartland Media and CAN TV. We have had some trouble with technical issues. Some of you have contacted me. We are in touch with WLUW, our home base, trying to get a few things wrinkled out. It's always a little dicey when you do community radio and you're doing it off location, but I think we'll get this sorted out. And in the meantime, I do recommend that you go to that youtube.com/Heartland Media site. But last week, not only did we have Billy Brooks, also known as Che, who was the Minister of Education for the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. And he comes into my class at DePaul on activism every year. So I had a big dose of him last week. He came to class, and he was also on the show. And we had 2 young women from Florida, from Tampa, who go to the University of South Florida, and they were on to talk about the Tampa 5. They had tried to approach the provost or the president at University of South Florida over that Governor DeSantis's really negative rulings around diversity and sexual identity, those kind of things. And they tried to talk to the president, and they were attacked and beaten by campus police. Those two women are Lauren Pinheiro and Chrisley Carpio. And you can actually get a hold of them if you want to know more at the Committee to Defend the Tampa 5 at gmail.com. And once again, they are on last week's Live from the Heartland. Okay, we're going to take a short little break, probably have a little bit of music from our engineer, Hal James, and then we'll come back with our first guest, whoever that is. Wait and see.
I'm an old school player. They know my name up and down the line. I'm an old school player. They know my name up and down the line. Been doing it a long time, and I'll bring you peace of mind. I'm an old school player. All my work is guaranteed. Old school player. All my work is guaranteed. I'm gonna bring you peace of mind. An experienced man is what you need.
We're back with more Live from the Heartland. I'm Michael James, and it always brings me a lot of pleasure to bring on our next guest, the one, the only Marilyn Katz. About a week ago, I got something in the mail alerting me to an op-ed piece that Marilyn did, I think for the Sun Times, and it was Teach the Real Legacy of Fred Hampton and the Black Panthers to Inspire Our Youth. And since it was the week of the Black Panthers in my life, having Billy Brooks, aka Che, on the show, as well as having him talk to my class, I figured we're going to stay in the fold here, and we're going to talk about the Panthers and Fred Hampton, and we may get to a few other things. So good afternoon to you, Marilyn. It's always good to see you. And tell us a little bit about what led you to write this op-ed for the Sun Times.
Mike, it's always great to be here with you. The week after Mayor Johnson declared it Fred Hampton Day, I was reading the paper and noticed that it was the first weekend in 20 years where somebody had not been killed. A young Black man had not been killed. And I was thinking about those 20 years and what had happened, and thinking about Fred, and thinking about how could 13,000 young Black men have lost their lives at the hands of one another over the last 20 years? And thinking that part of it was due to the wrong legacy being carried for the last 60 years. So in our remembrances, we tend to think about glorious deaths. You know, we focus on the death of Martin Luther King, the assassination of Fred, when we really should be focusing on their lives. And if we really want people to value life and to aspire to lead a revolutionary life, then we need to focus on their lives, not their death. And the Sun Times chose to cut out one line in which I had said that Hanrahan and Daley had very consciously let all the gangbangers live and killed all the revolutionaries. And so the legacy that young men have is you live by the gun. And the legacy they have is they never saw the contrast between Fred and Bobby and Billy, who took up the gun to defend the community, and Jeff Fort and the Gangster Disciples, who took up guns to prey on the community. And that, I think, is an important difference and a legacy that we really need to reinforce and help people understand.
Well, in your piece, when you talk about let's create a curriculum of Fred Hampton's life, what would that look like?
It's really interesting.
I know that we do have a situation in the victory over in regard to the Burge torture case. There was some agreement that they were going to teach about it in schools. And I don't know if that relates, but it probably does to the larger real presentation of true Black history and true people's history in our schools.
Yes, but it focuses on Blacks as victims. And so most of what we teach is how to be a victim and how you've been victimized. What we're taught and what people talk about, all the legacy, what I hear in the prisons is Blacks as victims. But there is another legacy that goes from the sit-ins in the South to SNCC, to Fred Hampton, to what they were trying to do, which is an empowerment. And even though they killed Fred, that legacy goes all the way from SNCC, the sit-ins, to Barack Obama. It is an empowerment story, not a solution. And the second thing is about really what the Panthers were about. And what they were building was the nucleus of a new society in the belly of the beast. So the programs that they did, breakfast for children, childcare, daycare, free schooling, free legal aid, free medical health, none of those programs existed in the federal government. Right. They were programs created by and introduced by the Panthers as what a good society should look like. And that's what they were killed for.
And they, other groups, including Rising Up Angry, the Young Patriots, the Young Lords, did create those Serve the People programs. But let's be clear, it was the Panthers who initiated them.
And also initiated that coalition between themselves and Rising Up Angry and the Young Patriots and the Young Lords, which really anticipated a unifying strategy for revolution and change.
I always talk about how it helped to lay the groundwork, not only for Harold Washington, but for Obama. And I would even claim that a lot of us older folks and our kids and all that were really very much involved in helping to elect Brandon Johnson.
Oh, absolutely. I always tell the story. And I tell it to all the reporters too, that when we were 18, I met Leon Finney and Willie Barrow and Al Raby. And when I came back in 82 and did Harold's campaign to the media, who did I meet? I'd been in California all this time. We're all of us grown up. It was Cha-Cha, and it was Chewy, and it was you, and it was Slim, and we were just now, instead of 18, we were 32. And so we elect Harold. And then in 2002, when I held the rally against the war in Iraq, what I call the first rally by internet, who was my core group? You, Carl Davidson, Leon Finney, everybody who I'd met in 68, 69.
Yeah, well, you and I do go back pretty far. I've been counting it up, and it's like from 1966 till now would be 57 years.
Wow, can't be true.
And, it's 57 years. You'd think we would have had socialism by now.
Yeah, we did think we were going to have socialism by now, dear, if you remember. Personally, I was going to be a ballet dancer by now. Not with ballet, not belly.
Well, the Fred Hampton thing that you raise really is probably a larger question. How do we have curriculum in our public schools, particularly here in Chicago, that really addresses all the good that people like Fred did. And I don't know if there's a movement to do that. And I don't know what goes on inside the teachers union and how much they get to shape curriculum. But if you have any thoughts on that and going forward, what we might advocate for to make that a reality, spill the beans now.
Well, I did talk to Billy Brooks, and I did hear from the Howard Zinn people. So I am hoping, and I got a lot of emails, like, great idea. So I'm hoping that we can move something forward. But it raises a very big question. Why do people make revolution? Why do they make change? I don't think it's because they're victimized. I think it's a tension between what we think our potential is and it's a pushback against it. So part of it is really thinking, understanding that social change doesn't come from the most hideous condition. It comes from our expectations of something better. And that's a mentality that I think progressives have to grasp.
I think, yeah, that another way to put that would be when people have rising expectations that are not met, that they tend to act out a little bit.
Right. And that's really important and really a difference. We are not simply all victims. We are not, we have the potential for greatness. And that's what you and I and Billy Brooks and everybody else really needs to remember and teach.
Yeah, I think we do. We do have to keep talking to people about how there could be a better way. And yes. Speaking of that, let me shift gears here, because the last time I had you on was over a crisis in the Constitution and the governing of Israel. And I wondered if you had any short little update on what's going on in Israel, because you do pay closer attention to that than I do. And I would love to hear what you might have to say about it.
Well, this is my not so hopeful part. I mean, I think Israel, to me, the only reason to stay involved in Israel is the reason we stayed involved in Vietnam. That Israel is the Palestine is an occupied country, occupied by colonialists. And it's our duty, moral duty as Jews, to oppose a colonial strategy, an imperialist strategy. You know, the Palestinians are an incredible, resourceful people. Will they win this one? There is an increasing awareness of Israel's misdeeds. You know, even Nicholas Kristof, but I don't know whether the Saudis and all the rest of them will sell them out, the Palestinians in the short run. All I know is that as a Jew, progressive Jew, that's still on my agenda. I'm not giving up. And in fact, I'm buying more Palestinian products all the time because they are not simply victims. They're the best educated people in the entire Middle East, with women engineers. It's a very robust society. So I will give you a status report, but not giving up yet.
Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to switch to politics.
That's something simple, like migrants or something like.
I don't know. Do you have a position on what we ought to do with migrants? Like right now in Illinois, for those who don't know, who might be listening or viewing, we have our new mayor was coming up with a plan for a massive tent city that would be enacted by the same people who've done some anti-immigration stuff for Governor DeSantis. And the Governor Pritzker, basically he threw some water on that little fire, saying he wasn't sure that was the best way to go. And he, like other people, have talked about utilizing existing structures that are not being occupied or used to handle migrants. I don't know if you want to address that or just give a little bit on.
I would agree. I think 10 cities are ridiculous. This, you know, even with global warming, it gets cold. But
Oh.
mainly, we're talking about 31 million a month, 31 million a month, and 5,000 migrants arriving here this week. We'll be broke. There's no way it's a federal problem. Abbott has sent all the migrants to cities with large Black populations, stirring up the pot and antagonisms between Blacks and Hispanics. The Mexican community is upset. There are millions of Mexicans here who don't have a work permit. It's a federal problem. It's got to really, Biden's got to step up.
Yeah, I hope he does. I mean, I really think that the feds have to get involved with this. And I think for us, the organizers on the ground here in Chicago, it is a challenge because you do have some communities who've been disenfranchised in many ways and things taken away or promises not kept are saying, hey, we're here for a long time. We've got these issues. And now we're trying to deal with this onslaught of people looking for a better life. And we want to welcome them. We also have to figure out how to handle that challenge. And for people need to realize that these people who are coming will be voters someday. They'll be citizens and there'll be a big voting block. And I think we really want to handle it in a principled way. So I know that we're going to try to have other people on Alderman Vasquez has been on before. We've had Maria Haddon. We've talked about this and we will talk about it again. But it's something that's a real challenge, but an opportunity for people here to make conditions better or to deal with the conditions. But we need the support and the help of the federal government.
But if anybody knows of any empty Catholic schools, let somebody know.
Yeah, St. Jerome's over on
Right.
Loyola is one.
There are a lot.
I'd love to see that turn into something.
There's a mission for you. And you've got the megaphone, hon.
Well, we're working on it. A couple other things I want to ask you about, Marilyn, in the few minutes that we've got. We have a situation where the Speaker of the House was voted out yesterday. And I want to ask you flat out, do you have any take on government in D.C.? And then I'm going to touch on political races, too, that are coming up in the future. Any thoughts on D.C.?
It's out of control. Where it lands, I don't know. I mean, I was a little surprised with the Hakeem Jeffries move to decide to support the far right wing in their ouster. I can, kind of see it, but for fun, but I don't know where it lands. And now they threw Pelosi and Steny Hoyer out of their second offices. I mean, just chaotic.
Little petty stuff, yeah.
I think this is uncharted water.
Well, you know who I was watching on TV? I watch Nicole, whatever her name is, on CNN or MSNBC.
MSNBC.
She's very good, I think.
She's great.
She had on this former Republican congressman from Florida, Peter Jolly, I think is his name, or is it David Jolly? I should have this down. Anyhow, he was, as a former Republican, he basically was encouraging the Democrats not to come to the aid of McCarthy. And so I said at the outset of the show, I was glad that they stood together, and we'll have to see where that falls. Let me ask you, Marilyn Katz, what you see as some important races out there and what people should take note of, and what people on the left, progressives who still believe that we got to work in their electoral realm, what they should be doing in the next period of time.
Well, I mean, one obviously important one is California. I do have a favorite. I think Barbara Lee, who's a Black progressive congresswoman, should get that seat in California.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be, I want to see how the Southern strategy works and whether we can, in Georgia and the Carolinas, actually make some headway. To me, the key issue, well, a few things. I think abortion and reproductive rights continues to be the wedge issue. And that if I had gobs of money, that's where I would really focus my time and money. It's the only way to get into the states that could go one way or the other. And I think, states like, I think Virginia's up, and a couple more border states, and we need those, in Michigan. And I really do think that is the only reliable issue. In fact, I wish there were more outrage than there is.
Yeah, I'm still blown away that Biden hasn't gotten a little more credit for some of the stuff he's done. But I don't know if it's, if it's too long range, and if people, regarding infrastructure, jobs, et cetera, he doesn't get as much. I'm totally surprised he's been as good as he has been, and I'm grateful.
Well, one time
I don't know if it's translated yet.
We should probably do a show on what's happened with the media and the fact of its fragmentation and what people know or don't know. Let me tell you something. I was looking this up. When Brandon brags about having a mandate, he came in with 15% of the potential vote in the city of Chicago, Brandon Johnson. When we came in with Harold, Michael, 77% of the city voted, and we came in with 55% of that. Now, part of that is just really, are people uninterested? It's really the fact that there is no unifying media. We don't know what we don't know. So you talk about Biden getting credit. Who do you think's reading about him? How do people know what,
Sure.
What do you think people are doing? Like, they're not like us. They're not nerding the papers and looking at Build Back Better. They're looking at, give me that tequila, and is Kansas City going to win this game tonight?
All right, Marilyn, thanks a lot, and I will look forward to seeing you soon. Keep
Bye-bye.
up the good work. Adios.
Thank you.
And everybody else, stay tuned. We're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back with more live from the Heartland here on the left end of your dial, WLUW 88.7, also CAN TV on Thursday nights at 9, as well as Spotify and Google Podcasts and youtube.com/Heartland Media. That's it. We'll be right back. Don't go too far.
When you've been mistreated and cast aside, sometimes you feel like you up and died. I'll ease your mind and pick you up off the ground. You're gonna be all right when the blues man comes to town. When I do my work, I have perfect control, and I won't stop till I satisfy your soul. I'll ease your mind and pick you up off the ground. You're gonna be all right.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Live from the Heartland. We're in Chicago. I'm Michael James, and it always brings me a lot of pleasure to bring this fellow back. He's been on a number of times. We actually got him up real early. He's over in Japan. It brings me great pleasure to bring on Johnny Burgin, who is up for the award and nominee for the Best Traditional Blues Artist, and also a Delmark recording artist. And he's traveling around the world. Tell us what you're doing over there in Japan.
Good morning from Japan. Well, hello gozaimasu. So I'm having a lot of fun here. I've got about a month-long trip. It's great to see you, Michael. And thanks for having me back. I'll show you something real quick. So here's my tour hats.
Oh, I got to get one of those. Coast to
Chicago
coast.
Blues, coast to coast. Yeah, maybe I'll wear it. Yeah.
Well, I got to
right.
say, I've been listening to a lot of blues. I go to a fellow every week for a little deep tissue body work, and he's been taking his little iPhone connected to a speaker and on Spotify and going Chicago Blues. And then week after week, we get all these people. Some I've heard, some I haven't heard. But the Chicago Blues are a wonderful thing. And before we get into the details, let me just share that you are going to be performing at the Skokie Theater on October 21st. And that's the Johnny Burgin review with a number of notable people. So why don't we share with the audience when you're coming, it's at the Skokie Theater, and who's playing with you, and then we'll get into some more details.
Great. Well, the Skokie Theater is at Lincoln and Oakton there in downtown Skokie. This is my second year doing it. So the show is sponsored by the Niles Township Food Bank Foundation. And we're very happy to help them out, grateful for their support. So the show is going to be Randy McAllister. He's a Texas blues artist. He made a lot of great records on JSP and other labels, Severn. Rare Chicago appearance for him. Peter Nond is a Danish harp player and singer and songwriter. He was mentored by James Harmon. Mary Lane is replacing Tail Dragger, who recently passed away. And Mary Lane's 87 years old, and there's very few people who are kind of in her category as far as that era of blues. Pretty much in Chicago, you've got Bob Stroger, Billy Boy Arnold, Buddy Guy, and Mary Lane, and that's it. And anyway, then there's also Mary Martins, Swedish slide guitar queen. So it's kind of a Euro intergenerational blues review.
Johnny Burgin, have you played with these folks before? And how did you put this little group together?
Randy, I did a show with him in South Dakota when I was driving through, and now he's going on a tour. So it's like, come on and do the review. He is such a great singer and songwriter. I'm excited about his music. It's kind of a little out of my, he's a drummer and a harp player and a songwriter, but it's skews on the blues side to Americana, but he's just got this dead on perspective and this kind of incisive writing style that I really like. And that's how that's some more background on Randy. And Peter, I just did a Blues Explosion review tour. They called it the Blues Explosion, and the audiences liked it so much. And we played these big theaters. That was my first time working with Peter. We hit just about every town in Denmark of any size at all. And we played these like big theaters, and we had a young guy who was a piano player, Chris Copen. And he did a beautiful job. He sings and does a New Orleans style thing. And then we had this great singer, Sara da Silva. So we had a female singer, a piano player. Everybody had a different niche, and Peter did a solo harmonica piece. And then this guy who was in some famous Danish rock band, this fellow's named Nello Morgensen. I could pronounce it right when I was in Denmark, but now I'm probably mangling it. And so he was just famous for being in this rock band. So he did like a Bo Diddley song, but the point is there was a lot of variety and the audience really wins. So I'm doing the same thing, doing it again. And, the individual members can change as it goes along. So that's the Blues Explosion in Denmark. And this is the Johnny Burgin review.
Oh, that's nice. That's good. Let me, you mentioned big theaters. I was looking at your itinerary for October, which is quite a lot of shows. It's a lot of Midwest shows, a lot of Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Indiana. You take a trip back to DC, I think. But a lot of those, they're not like in theaters or concert halls. They're in like clubs, bars. And I just wondered if what you prefer. I mean, I really used to like going to clubs, whether it was country music or blues music or some rock and roll. but you're at a bar, you know, and as opposed to going to a concert hall. I like concert halls. I've got two kids who've been in bands that are in big concert halls, but I do like the intimacy of small clubs. Your take on that and your tour around the Midwest.
I like that too, but sometimes it's nice to step it up and, you know, present things in a bigger way. You know, I lived in Chicago for 28 years and I've done like every tiny little club, like in every Chicago suburb all around. And eventually like it was in Chicago, it was time to move up.
What's your favorite club that you played in Chicago?
Well, what really put me on the map was the Monday nights at Smoke Daddy. That got me going. All of a sudden I clicked in. That was in the 90s. I had Jimmy Burns on vocals. I had Kenny Smith on drums and Kelly Littleton. Anyway, Kenny recently won a BMA for best traditional blues drum. So, and he's a great musician. His dad was Willie Smith, who played with Muddy for many years, Muddy Waters. Anyway, that one put me on the map because all of a sudden all these people came out who were, you know, younger people, like people my age. I was in my 20s, and that's how Jimmy Burns got his first record on Delmark. That's how I got my first record. And I love the old blues on Halstead that's no longer there. That was another intimate thing. And it's all about the intimate atmosphere. I mean, if you play some gigantic barbecue restaurant that has 8 TVs on with every possible sporting event, that is not an intimate blues atmosphere.
That's for sure.
No matter what posters they put on the wall, it is not a blues club.
What's your sense about the blues around the country these days?
You know, everything's about 20% smaller after COVID, or maybe 15% smaller. But the blues audience is the most loyal audience of any style of music. The only people it's in the category of polka and heavy metal for loyal fans that really care about it. You know, I mean, they're just on the blues channel all day, every day. And so basically, I'm just like staying connected to these people, seeing them again, giving them the best show I can. And, you know, there's pockets of talent all over the country. There's lots of good scenes out there. They're just small scenes that are sort of focused by just some really passionate people.
What keeps you going and optimistic and full of energy on the road? I mean, you are a hell of a working musician. You play a lot of clubs day after day. I looked at your tour in Japan. I think you got a bunch of cities there.
Oh yeah,
you're definitely a working man. What keeps you going? And yeah, give me that.
Well, you know, that's kind of like someone asked Lazy Lester, like, you know, how have you had such a long career in music? And he said, don't die. But anyway, I love it. I love the people and I love being on stage. I play a lot with not always the same people all the time. I play with pickup bands like a good bit of the time, or I'm playing with friends that I've known for many years. So it's the camaraderie, the friendship, the community. You know, there's still an excitement for me. You know, I remember when I first got up to play on stage with the Ice Cream Men at Lily's. Ice Cream Men was a super traditional blues band, and anyway, that was in the
early Lily's 90s. On Lincoln.
Yeah, and they sat down to play. Steve Cushing was the drummer from Blues Before Sunrise. I'm sure you might be familiar with that radio show. Anyway, my leg was shaking like up and down, like violently, because I was so nervous, you know, because we were sitting down. And I'm like, if I could just hold this guitar, I can get through this, you know. But then, so it was agonizing, you know, because I was so shy. But then I wanted to do it again. And I just got a real passion for doing it. And I just kept sticking with it and just sort of building it brick by brick by brick and learning brick by brick by brick. And, you know, it's been a great ride. I mean, I'd be crazy to stop.
Oh, that's good. All right. So what I want to ask you now is, well, I got two things. Let me ask you first, what kind of, I remember giving my own kids advice about what they ate and exercise while they were touring. I'm wondering, and I asked Charlie Musselwhite this too,
Oh my God.
what he eats on the road and what kind of exercise he does on the road. I'm asking you the same thing. Are you aware of that? Do you think about keeping your health together and taking steps to do that? Or is it just like I'm on the road, I'm worn out, I get up for each show, but then I hit the sack, etc. Where are you at on all that?
Well, I used to be a lot more cavalier about it, but last year I went out in May and I didn't get back till November. And then I had a physical. So like the numbers are not what they were supposed to be at all. So anyway, I'm going to be fine. But the point is, I have to take that into consideration a little bit more. And walking is really the best for me.
Yeah, walking is a good one. I like.
Because you can always walk anywhere.
These days, I do a lot of kind of running in the deep water in the pool. I got a couple shot shoulders, so I just do a lot of moving around in the pool every morning, getting loosened up for the day. And I'm recommending it highly to everybody, particularly if you have a hotel that has a pool.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I actually really like swimming. I just, it's hard to do that sometimes, although I had a nationwide gym membership and sometimes I was able to jump into the pool and all that. And I just try to, you got to sort of eat what you can when you can. But yeah. The food here in Japan is great, man. It's definitely agreeing with me. There's lots of great fish and vegetables, and it's very high in protein and it's really good. But I just kind of do the best I can with it. That's the problem is, all that stuff is based on a consistent routine, but it's hard to maintain that kind of routine. So, but walking is something I could do. I do vocal warm-ups and stuff. Try to, drink a little less beer and a little more hot tea or something,
Right on. Sake, maybe. Let me ask you, Johnny, who was playing over there with you? And what is the response of the Japanese audiences to your music?
Well, a lot of the folks are from the last CD I did, No Border Blues Japan. That's a spotlight on the underground Japanese blues scene. So this has been like a reunion of that. So those are a lot of the people. Here we go.
For the radio audience, he's holding up Japan, No Border Blues, a CD. Mostly Japanese musicians with you on this tour?
Oh, all Japanese musicians. In fact, they're not even with me. There's just, when I was in Nagoya, I played with guys from there. I played with guys from Kyoto tonight, guys in Tokyo. I played with Lee Kanehiro, who plays with the Cashbox Kings. She was up in Tokyo. She's a piano player, just wonderful. And so many good guitar players, just special guys. And, that's part of the thing too. And it's nice to kind of remain flexible. So, generally I'll get in, if I can take a nap at the hotel, I take a nap. Then we have like an hour or so rehearsal. And then we go out to an izakaya. We have some birus, and then we do the show.
Nice. And how many shows are you doing over there?
19.
19.
We got 5 more.
5 more. Over how many weeks?
3 weeks or something. 3.5, 4 weeks.
You're working hard. You're working hard.
4 weeks. Almost 4 weeks.
Then you come home and you go to Skokie and a few other. You're going to be in Morris, Illinois. You got a bunch of.
Yeah, I'm in Des Moines, Minneapolis, and first I'm playing a party in Skokie, for something called Dwelling Spaces, which is like a relocation service. Anyway, and then I'm playing in Morris, Illinois.
Morris, Illinois on the 14th, Burlington, Wisconsin on the 15th, Beloit on the 16th, Des Moines on the 18th, Minneapolis the 19th, Milwaukee the 20th, and then back to Skokie on the 11th. And that's where we're going to hope to see you.
Right.
While I've got you here, I'm going to do what I like to do. I like to ask, how about sharing with our audience how you came to be? A little bit of history, where you grew up, what influenced you, first instruments, that kind of thing, setbacks, steps forward, whatever you want to share.
Long question.
Go.
There's definitely been some setbacks, but you know, brick by brick. My mom bought me a Rickenbacker guitar when I was about 15, 16. And then I just got real excited about it. I finally had a place to put all this like nervous, fidgety energy I had. You know, I must have been something 80 some or something. So anyway, I was able to focus on that. And I just kept learning and growing. Came to Chicago, fell into the blues scene, and that was through Tail Dragger. And Tail Dragger recently passed about 3 weeks ago. So I've had a 30-something year relationship with him, and you know, and not just me, all my friends. It's like all my friends, like we've kind of got a hole in our soul right now about Tail Dragger.
Where did you grow up before you got to Chicago?
Mostly in Starkville, Mississippi. And then I finished high school in Greenville, South Carolina.
So you're a Southern guy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Both my parents are from Mississippi, and my extended family. And now she's in Gretna, Louisiana now.
Well, we should probably use your vote in Mississippi if you want to go back home and register. But where are you living now, Johnny?
I'm living in Norfolk, Virginia.
Uh-huh.
I'm shopping for a house in Memphis. So fingers crossed.
That's where the Bulls are starting out their training. They're in Memphis today. I think I heard on the news.
Oh.
I don't know why. Well, is there anything else about your past history you want to share with us? Any notable moments? Someone who put you on a certain track, or someone you remember as really nurturing you a little bit?
The two guys who really helped me, one is Tail Dragger, who was a real West Side neighborhood, gritty, in-your-face blues singer. To me, Tail Dragger was like one of the last guys who really came from a rural setting and put that music in the electric blues clubs, like the classic story of the, you know, post-war Chicago blues and all that. He's one of the last people to do that. And I learned so much from him. And then the other was Sam Lay.
Oh, great. Sam Lay. Yeah.
Yeah. And he turned me into a real musician. He had the discipline and the work ethic, and he had the drive, and he had the polish, you know. So those two things, it was kind of a yin yang. They were both great bluesmen. And Sam also, like, he had a real distinctive voice, and he couldn't sing everything, but he taught me how to like pick the right songs to sing for myself. He taught me a lot about how to do things. And, you know, I was in his van for like 2 years, coast to coast, and it was my first taste of being on the road. But I had to do it, you know, gradually. I couldn't just go out and be Johnny Burgin on the road at that point. I had no idea, you know, what all that took, you know, but I was able to just shut up, play guitar, watch, listen, learn, and just do what he wanted me to do, because he, you know, he knew what he wanted. He knew enough guitar to show me what to play, you know, and all I had to do was do what he wanted. And I just every night as good as I could. And he always left the stage drenched with sweat after giving like everything. He put so much into it, you know.
Yeah, I used to, in my early days, I was a big fan of Butterfield Blues Band.
No doubt.
And even before Sam Lay was in the group, I used to go see Paul Butterfield at the Blue Flame at 39th and Drexel in like, you know, 66, 67. And I think he was playing with Howlin' Wolf's old band or some of those guys. But then Sam Lay would show up at the Heartland with Lynn Orman, who you know, who's our music producer, and Corky Siegel and various people. So I got Sam Lay on this show somewhere, whether it's video or recording. I'm going to go looking for it. But he's a wonderful guy, and we will always remember him. I like that's when he does Maggie's Farm.
Really cool. That's definitely on the list of some of the top Dylan covers.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of them out there. Well,
Yeah.
let's see. We're going to get close to running out of time. Is there anything that I didn't hit you up on that you'd like to share?
Well, I hope that some of you will, I just want you to know about this Johnny Burgin review. It's going to rock. Randy McAllister, such a great artist. Mary Lane, I mean, she is a treasure of this city. In fact, she was recognized by the city of Chicago for Women in Blues. And, I know Lynn's really proud of her and has worked a lot with her. And definitely you want to see Mary Lane. So I'm proud of doing this review. It pulls on these relationships that I've had for a long time. And, just check out what I'm doing as far as where my shows are, and tell your friends, because word of mouth is the best way to keep this kind of music going.
Well, we know millions of people are listening to this show, so hopefully there'll be a good turnout. But I'm going to try to. That's Saturday, the 21st, at the Skokie Theater in downtown Skokie.
7924 North Lincoln Avenue. But you were asking me, Michael, if there's anything else I'd like to mention, and I've been doing a lot of teaching. I've been teaching at the Pinetop Perkins Foundation workshop. This will be my third year doing that in June in Clarksdale, Mississippi, where we really focus on teaching kids. And that's been really rewarding. And I've been doing these YouTube videos every Monday talking about some of these great artists who are no longer with us, especially from the guitar side. And I've got all these lessons that no one has ever talked about these particular artists. Everyone talks about Eric Clapton or whatever, which is fine, but I'm going a little more deeper than that. So people like neighborhood blues guys from Chicago who had cool guitar styles, Sammy Lawhorn, Byther Smith, Eddie C. Campbell, Louisiana Red is not from Chicago, but same kind of guy. And all these people who are somewhat overlooked, plus some of the greats. So it's been really rewarding. And I meet people in my shows who are like, hey, I love your videos. I drove 2 hours to see your show. And so it's all about the community and widening the community a little bit and staying connected. I mean, it takes me a year to go around the country, around the world, see my friends, and then do it again.
This is great. So the 21st at the Skokie Theater, I'm going to try and make it. It's great talking to you. I'm glad you got up. I would have called you Sleeping Beauty, but you were up and you were on the Zoom before I was. So thanks so much. And give our love to everyone in Japan. And we're going to see you in the next couple of weeks. And you keep doing good in the world.
Michael, thanks for what you do. Thanks for having me on your show. I really appreciate being here.
Okay, brother. And everyone else, we're so glad you tuned in to Live from the Heartland. We're going to be back next week. We're going to have Tom Clark on. I think we're going to have Corky Siegel on. We got a lot of good shows coming up. And we want to thank everybody who made the show possible. Certainly our guest, Johnny Burgin, and our earlier guest, Marilyn Katz. I want to thank our engineer, Hal James, our music producer, Lynn Orman, our board of Katie Hogan and Tom Clark, and all power to the people, because we all got to do good in the world in order to make it a reality. So hang in there, do good in the world. The world needs all the good that we all do. See you next week. Over and out.
Are you doing the best you can? Over the mountain, under the big blue sky, you got a dream awaiting. I can see it in your eye. It may not come easy, but you've got a friend. I'll be by your side the entire ride. Just let me hear you say amen. Are you doing the best you can? Tell me, are you are you doing the best you can? Tout donne, est-ce que tu donnes le meilleur de toi-même parce que tu l'aimes? Tu donnes, est-ce que tu donnes le meilleur de toi-même? toi-même. Si tu l'aimes, tu donnes. Est-ce que tu donnes le meilleur de toi-même quand tu l'aimes? Are you doing the best you can? Tell me, are you doing